The sun hung high over Chu Xiu's estate, casting a serene glow over the traditional tiled roofs and the neatly paved courtyard. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with a different kind of weight, the weight of calculation. "Young master, you were truly imposing just now," Chu Xiu's attendant remarked, pouring tea with a look of genuine awe. "Even the grand steward of the pharmacy was so polite to you." Chu Xiu sat rigidly in his chair, his gaze cold and distant. He didn't share his servant's enthusiasm. "That wasn't politeness," he corrected, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "That was all." He set his cup down, his expression hardening into a mask of ruthless pragmatism. "Evil cuts both ways. If you cannot be so kind that everyone respects you, then you must be so evil that everyone fears you." The attendant scratched his head, a look of utter confusion crossing his face. "I don't understand." Chu Xiu offered a thin, mirthless smile. "Of course you don't. Otherwise, you wouldn't have muddled along for so many years without even becoming a steward." He stood up, dismissing the philosophy for the sake of action. "Go find some wooden stakes and set them up in the courtyard. I want to practice my blade." "Yes," the attendant chirped, scurrying off to fulfill the order. Left to his own thoughts, Chu Xiu's mind turned inward toward the grueling reality of his path. To him, the path of martial Tao was a simple, brutal equation: talent, perseverance, opportunity, and comprehension. "My talent is average," he admitted to himself, his eyes narrowing with a dark intensity. "Comprehension is unknown, and opportunities require strength to seize." He knew he wasn't a chosen prodigy of the heavens. He was a man who had to carve his own destiny out of stone. "Therefore, for now, I can only put effort into perseverance." As he prepared for his training, he calculated the resources he had managed to squeeze from his surroundings. The Grand Steward had been thorough: 2 packs of body powder per month, 30 pieces of silver, and 3 blood condensation pills per year. Chu Xiu gripped his sleeve, his resolve tightening. The steward knew how to handle things, but Chu Xiu knew how to use them. In this world, fear was a better currency than kindness, and he intended to spend it well. Chu Xiu lifted the small cup to his lips, the scent of medicinal herbs rising in the steam. The body powder was simple to collect, yet its effects were indispensable. It could replenish qi and strengthen the physical frame, aiding his cultivation significantly. For his current goals, it was the perfect catalyst for cultivating the Jingzhou Gong. He settled into a cross-legged position on his meditation platform. As he closed his eyes, a faint, ethereal blue light began to emanate from his body, flickering like cold flames in the dim room. Taoist cultivation methods were moderate and peaceful by nature. The more one cultivated, the more abundant their energy became. In this regard, it far surpassed other more volatile cultivation methods. By the next day, the blue aura around him had grown more stable and vibrant. Chu Xiu opened his eyes, feeling a newfound clarity surging through his limbs. After a full night of concentrated effort, his miraculous meridians ran automatically, and his 8 veins were all connected. His body had successfully processed the marrow-bone true qi, and the results were far from bad. "Next," he murmured, his voice tight with focus, "is practicing the blade." He stepped out into the cool morning air of the courtyard, where the wooden stakes had been prepared. He drew his weapon, the steel catching the early light. His current technique, the blue dragon under the sleeve, possessed the proper blade form but lacked the essential blade intent. To bridge that gap, there was no shortcut, only repetition. Chu Xiu moved with sudden, explosive speed. The courtyard filled with the rhythmic thwack of steel meeting wood as he practiced the most basic blade swings repeatedly. Each strike was a blur of motion, his body twisting and lunging as he sought to infuse every movement with the lethality required to survive the path he had chosen. The rhythmic sound of steel was interrupted by his attendant, Gao Bei, who approached with a tray. "Young master, I heard some news," Gao Bei said, his voice low. "The stewards leading the caravan assigned to you are all the second concubine's people. They say that when the caravan returns, they intend to give you a display of severity to humble you." Chu Xiu didn't break his stance immediately. "Did the other side spread this matter so blatantly?" he asked. "Yes, it was spread by one of the second concubine's maidservants," Gao Bei confirmed. A cold, mocking smile touched Chu Xiu's lips. "That mother and son really don't take me seriously. It's a pity, you all judged wrong. With me, people who do not listen are no different from dead people." He turned to his attendant, his eyes glinting with a dangerous light. "Gao Bei, come with me to Shangmang Mountain tomorrow morning," Chu Xiu commanded, his tone brooked no argument. "We are going to find that bandit leader, Manhwa." Gao Bei flinched, nearly dropping his tray. "Ah! Seeing the terror on the man's face, Chu Xiu's smile widened into something predatory. What are you afraid of? Bandits don't eat people. Moreover, he will become our greatest assistance. The young man in blue sat calmly behind the desk, his gaze steady as he addressed the rugged leader before him. Chieftain Ma, the matter I wish to discuss with you is somewhat significant, he began, his voice level. Could you ask your men to withdraw? Ma, leaning back with a cocky grin, didn't budge. He gestured to the two guards flanking him. No need. These are brothers with whom I have life and death friendships. There is nothing to hide from them. The young man didn't blink. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Chieftain Ma, then I will speak frankly. I want to talk to the person behind you. I know that you are not bandits. The room went silent for a heartbeat before Ma burst into a mocking laugh. What a joke. If Lord doesn't look like a bandit with this appearance, what else could I be? You are Guanzhong, the young man stated, his voice cutting through the laughter like a chill wind. The remnants of the Northern Lake's 36 giant bandits. The shift was instantaneous. The air turned frigid as the guards' faces twisted in shock. Before the words could even settle, the bandit lunged. Whoosh! A massive broadsword whistled through the air, aimed directly at the young man's head. With a fluid, practiced grace, the man in blue didn't retreat, he surged forward. He closed the distance before the heavy blade could complete its arc, his movements a blur of calculated precision. In a flash, he was inside Ma's guard. The two men stood locked in a test of strength, the sheer force of the encounter kicking up a gust of wind that ruffled their hair. Chieftain Ma, tell them not to be restless, the young man warned, his face inches from the other. If I really wanted to make an enemy of you, even if the fight happened in Northern Lake, once I wanted those heads down, you would have been dead long ago. Ma stared at him, sweat beading on his brow as he realized his strength was being completely neutralized. How did you know our background? He hissed. The young man in blue maintained his poise, his hand still firmly keeping the chieftain's blade at bay. I guessed, he continued calmly, Chieftain Ma's kung fu is orthodox, and the troops' discipline is strict. Added to that, you mentioned the word, Guan. He let the weight of his deductions sink in before adding, therefore, aside from the Chilean Iron Cavalry among the Northern Lake's 36 giant bandits, I really can't think of anything else. A look of begrudging respect crossed the bandit leader's face. He lowered his weapon, the murderous tension evaporating into a rough, sheepish laugh. Damn it, turns out it was Lord who didn't watch his mouth, Ma muttered, acknowledging the slip that had revealed their true identity. As the immediate threat subsided, the young man's mind drifted to the history that truly allowed him to confirm their origin. Decades ago, the Northern Yen was a land of chaos. Out of that turmoil emerged the 36 giant bandits, a force so bold they dared to plunder the Northern Yen imperial line. Their reign of defiance, however, met a brutal end when Northern Yen rose again, joining forces with the major martial arts sects to crush the bandits in a single, decisive sweep. The various leaders were either killed or crippled, and the group was thought to have vanished from history, never to become a significant force again. Yet, standing before him was proof that the remnants survived. Bringing his focus back to the present, the young man addressed the chieftain once more. Now Chieftain Ma should know my sincerity, right? Ma, now leaning his heavy blade over his shoulder, remained cautious. What exactly do you want to trade with my boss? Telling me first is the same. The young man's expression turned solemn, his eyes piercing. I know the whereabouts of your Chilean Iron Cavalry's great chieftain, the red-faced heavenly king Fong Hu. He paused, allowing the gravity of the name to hang in the air. Is this information enough to trade? The revelation hit Ma like a physical blow. His composure shattered, and he stepped forward, eyes wide with a mix of hope and suspicion. You really know the great chieftain's whereabouts? You aren't lying to me. Once you see the one behind you, the truth will naturally be revealed, the young man replied smoothly, his confidence unshaken. Besides, once we are there, I wouldn't dare to lie either. Chieftain Ma signaled for his men to stand down. Fine, then follow me. My boss is in North Shangmong Mountain. It will take a few days to get there. 5 days later, they arrived at a hidden mountain stronghold tucked away in the peaks of North Shangmong. Ma explained that his boss had established this secondary base just in case, building a small stronghold outside the main territory. He led the visitor into a spacious hall and told him to wait while he went to report. Soon, Ma returned with a burly, orange-clad man, Boss Han, a former personal guard to the great chieftain. The young man in blue sat calmly, sipping tea. Is it you who says you know the great chieftain's whereabouts? Han asked, his voice booming. He noted silently that Boss Han's cultivation seemed even stronger than Ma's. Correct, the young man replied without looking up. Han didn't appreciate the calm demeanor. Cut the crap. Speak. What exactly do you want? He stepped closer, his shadow looming over the table. If you demand an exorbitant price, don't blame me for getting tough. Unfazed, the visitor offered the news as a greeting gift for Boss Han. According to what I know, after Great Chieftain Fong, who was heavily injured by the people of the Northern Yen Imperial Court, he is currently recovering his strength in the desolate mountains of Liaodong Commandery in the north. Boss Han froze, his eyes wide with a mix of shock and hope. Is that true? The smirk on the young man's face widened, a glint of calculated triumph in his eyes. He knew he had the upper hand, the information he held was a bridge between two worlds. If Boss Han doesn't believe it, he began, his voice steady and persuasive, you can send someone to Broken Soul Valley in Liaodong Commandery to check. There are secret codes left by Great Chieftain Pang. Internally, he couldn't help but marvel at his own luck. I didn't expect these small details from the game settings to be such a big help, he thought. Han Bao, a massive man with a presence as heavy as the stone walls of his stronghold, didn't hesitate. He gestured toward a seat, his initial skepticism replaced by a burning curiosity. Sit, I will send someone. If we can really find the great chieftain, I, Han Bao, owe you this favor. Speak, what do you want? As the young man settled in, he watched the boss pace before him. The atmosphere in the room shifted from a tense interrogation to a formal negotiation. After finding Great Chieftain Pang Hu, what does Boss Han plan to do? The young man asked, testing the waters. Han Bao lowered himself onto his throne, his muscles rippling under his vest. Naturally, take the men of the stronghold to seek refuge with the Great Chieftain. The young man shook his head, his expression turning grave. That is incorrect. Great Chieftain Pang is currently resting and recuperating. Not only would that be useless, but it would also increase the risk of exposure. He leaned forward, emphasizing his point. He wouldn't let you go either. What you should do is accumulate money, provisions, and cultivation resources to prepare for his rise. Han Bao's eyes narrowed, his brow furrowing as he processed the advice. The logic was sound, yet he remained focused on his immediate priorities. These matters will be decided once the Great Chieftain is found. Speak, what is your intention? The young man didn't blink. He met the chieftain's gaze with a sharp, business-like focus. I want to cooperate with you guys to make money. A slow, predatory grin spread across Han Bao's face. The prospect of wealth was a language he understood perfectly. Such a good thing, he mused, leaning in closer. Explain it in detail. The young man leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. There are many bandits in Shangmang Mountain who frequently rob caravans and kill for money, he observed, watching Han Bao closely. Therefore, more and more caravans are switching to the time-consuming and laborious main roads, or arranging large numbers of guards. Your business is getting scarcer, right? Han Bao grunted, leaning back in his chair with a resigned look. Correct. So what should be done? Nothing can be accomplished without rules, the young man replied, a sharp light in his eyes. If there are no rules, we will set the rules. As long as caravans hand over a portion of their wealth, they can be escorted across the mountain. This way, it benefits both the caravans and Boss Han. Han Bao's expression darkened slightly as he weighed the proposal. Then wouldn't I be making enemies of all the bandits in Shangmang Mountain? One voice in the entire Shangmang Mountain is enough, the young man countered, his voice dripping with subtle provocation. Does Boss Han lack the confidence to deal with those disorganized mobs? Han Bao's face split into a fierce, prideful grin. Of course I have it. If not for my injuries remaining unhealed, I would have subdued that bunch of trash long ago. Unexpectedly, this guy was actually a Xiantian expert before I misjudged him, the young man thought, his gaze momentarily distant as he adjusted his internal strategy. By the way, Han Bao said, his tone shifting back to business, you gave me such a good deal. What exactly do you want? The young man didn't hesitate. Very simple. I just have a caravan in the Chu family. I hope they can enter and exit Shangmang Mountain without obstruction. Additionally, I hope Boss Han, you can help me kill people. Han Bao let out a sharp laugh. The first condition is no problem. But for the second one, wanting me, Han Bao, to be a hired thug, just this piece of news isn't enough. The young man's smile remained unwavering. Of course, what I can give Boss Han is more than just this. I will tell you the information about passing caravans in advance. He met Han Bao's eyes with chilling confidence. This way, you won't have to worry about a wasted trip. Han Bao nodded, his tension finally easing as he rested his chin on his hand. That does sound pretty good. The young man then added a final hook to secure the deal. By the way, I will soon transmit news of a Chu family caravan to you, Boss Han. Consider it a greeting gift. Han Bao's eyes widened, a flash of confusion and suspicion crossing his face. Rob your own caravan? What is the meaning of this? The young man narrowed his eyes, his expression cold and detached as he placed a hand over his heart. That is the Chu family's caravan, he corrected firmly, not my caravan.